The Dutch language is really cool. I think it's one of the coolest languages out there personally. It's hard to learn. It's really hard to learn, but not because the language itself is particularly hard, but just because it's just structured differently and it works differently, and words don't have the same meaning, but sometimes they sound the same. And sometimes they can be a little confusing, but it's also very intuitive, and I really enjoy it. A couple things to know about Dutch. Dutch is a phonetic language. Everything, except for words that they've taken from other languages, everything is written the way it's pronounced. So if you learn pronunciation and you learn their spelling rules, you can spell a word by hearing someone say it. And that can be really handy if you're asking for directions and someone is like, oh, turn left on this street. And you're like, oh, okay, I know the name of the street because I heard someone say it. And you can spell it in your mind just from hearing someone say a word. This also means that you can pick out where your pronunciation is poor, because they have very defined vowel sounds. I think someone told me they have 16 different vowel sounds, and they just use those in combinations or different ways, and then that constitutes all of their vowel sounds. And you can tell where your pronunciation is falling short. For instance, I don't differentiate between my A and my AA sounds, and that's a shortcoming. That's a failure. That's something that makes me sound American, or at least English speaking, because I don't have a clear distinction between the A and the AA sound. Dutch is halfway between German and English. It's closer to German than English is, and it's closer to English than German is. I hope that makes sense. So it's fun. It's a lot of fun. The rules in Dutch, the grammar in Dutch, is extremely important. In English, we tend to follow grammar rules. Sometimes we butcher them a little bit, but whatever, as long as the meaning's there, and whatever, you know. In Dutch, the grammar makes the meaning. You use the grammar if you want to make sense. Like I said earlier, they'll understand if you use American grammar. They'll get it. But if you want to speak good Dutch, you have to learn the grammar and you have to learn the rules. And they're very simple. They're simple rules that are hard to apply and that have shades of meaning, which is a lot of fun. And the basic sentence structure is very easy. It's subject, verb, object, other things. So the verb always goes second. And then all other verbs go at the very, very end, which is fun. But if you're posing a question, the verb goes first. So it's fun. You got to pay attention. Often you can tell if someone is asking a question by the grammar rather than by the inflection, which is helpful. The more familiar you become with grammar, the easier it becomes to understand. And the easier it becomes to understand, the better your own pronunciation will become, because you'll begin paying attention to how they're saying what they're saying, rather than trying to figure out what they're saying. Dutch does have a guttural in it. It has a guttural G. So instead of G, it makes a ch sound. So like Den Haag, H-A-A-G, Den Haag, or Groningen, G-R-O-N-I-N-G-E-N. Make sure I spell that right. Groningen. It doesn't have to be hyper pronounced. A lot of new missionaries come out with a really G, and that's very North Hollands, and it's not necessarily recommended practice. The G ranges from really, really hard in the north to really, really soft, just like a hard H, just in the south, in Belgium specifically. So just get to the point where it doesn't ruin your throat anymore to make some kind of sound. And once it's comfortable for you, just stick with that. You don't have to be coughing up your lungs every time you're saying a guttural G. In fact, it gets really annoying really fast if a greenie comes out and is like, and you're just like, oh, come on. So, a couple things to be aware of that can be trippy. They roll their R's, and I've been told by Dutch people that if you don't have some kind of roll to your R, it's very hard for the Dutch to hear the R. I'm not very good at that. I tend to use kind of a fake stop in the middle of my R, and it just sounds kind of goofy. But if you know how to roll your R, it doesn't matter if it's in the front of your mouth or in the back. But just a very slight roll on most R's will make you much more understandable. They have diphthongs, which are vowels that start making one sound and end making a different sound. And those are usually extremely difficult for people to handle. I don't remember the majority of them because it just became second nature, but the one I really struggled with was their EU sound, which is O. O. And that's not even a particularly well-pronounced EU, but that's how I got through it. One way that Dutch missionaries often explain the EU sound to their missionaries is to quote Hermione Granger, where she says, "It's Wingardium Leviosa, not Wingardium Leviosa." And that Wingardium Leviosa, that's the diphthong. That's the sound you want to make, Wingardium Leviosa. And then you just have to learn to plunk it into any word wherever, which I'm still not particularly good at. It took me the majority of my time in Leuven to get to the point where I could say Leuven. But the Dutch just busted out like it's no big deal, which is pretty amazing. Other than that, it's just a lot of practice. It's a beautiful language. A lot of what they do is really, really fun once you start learning it. Because to make new words, they'll just mash existing words together. So like a platypus in Dutch is een vogelbeekdier. I mispronounced that, sorry. Vogelbeekdier. Beck and bake are different. A vogelbeekdier translates to bird beak animal, which is a platypus. So it's super fun. There are a couple of cities with names that actually mean things, like Den Helder is like of the glory, of the light, of the clarity. Or Den Haag is actually a contraction of what is it? Schravenhaag, I think is what it is, which is like the grave downs, if I remember correctly, or the burial place downs. Or Den Bosch is 's-Hertogenbosch, which I don't remember what that one means, but it's something like the forest of something something. So it's a fun language once you begin learning words and how they put words together. It's fun. It just gets fun. And often, if you don't know a word, you can say the English word, but with Dutch pronunciation, and that'll be either close enough that they'll understand, or that'll be the word you're looking for, which is just handy. It's just nice. It doesn't always work. There are a lot of times it won't work, but like I said, they're fluent in English, so they'll get what you're talking about. They borrow words all the time. The internet over there is just internet. Google is just Google. iPhone is just iPhone. Sometimes you get silly words like their old people tend to ride around on these little motorized, like little, I don't even know. They're kind of like those things people here go shopping with in the supermarket, where it has the basket on the front and they just sit in that chair and like and drive around the supermarket. Except old people there like ride those around like for reals. Like it's a serious thing. And those are just called scootmobiles. It's a scootmobile. I'm just gonna hop on the scootmobile and scoot around. So kind of fun. Verbs are easy to learn and they're fun to learn. Verbs always follow the same conjugation pattern. There are very few verbs that don't. Like to read is lezen, Lezen. to conjugate, you just cut off the en. So ik lees, I read. Hij leest, he reads. Zij leest, she reads. Het leest, it reads. And then, easiest part of all, if you're using a plural subject, so wij or we, jullie, plural you, zij, them, hij and zij, he and she, then you just say the verb. You don't do anything to it. Wij lezen, jullie lezen, zij lezen, hij and zij zijn aan het lezen. I mean, you just use a verb. So that's fun. It's easy to learn verbs and use them correctly. It's always just stem T.
So you're welcome, or like thank you is just like dank je. It's very simple, just like thank you. Hoeveel kost het means literally it's how much cost this. But how much does this cost? One that I heard at the very beginning of my mission quite a bit from my trainer was, sorry, mijn collega is new, or sorry, my companion is new. You'll hear a lot of different ways to say goodbye. One of the most interesting thing to me about the Dutch people is when they say goodbye, they do it at least 10 times. They'll say like, doei dag, doe, and you like talk to people on the phone. It is so funny. But one of my favorite ways was when I was serving that city, Eindhoven, was in Brabant, they say houdoe, and like I still to this day have no clue what it translates to, but it's just like goodbye, like see you later, like have a good time, like it's kind of stuff like that. But you'll hear them like, when people are saying goodbye, they'll be like, okay, like, bye, bye. It's like the equivalent of like saying, all right, good night, like, bye, see ya, bye. All this other stuff. But it's kind of interesting, and it takes a while to get used to, because at the first you're like, are they still talking to me? But they're just saying goodbye. They just do it a lot. So what's your name is wat is uw naam. That's something important to remember maybe about the language is, until they tell you to use jij, which means it's kind of like an informal version of you, use the word u, because it shows respect for the person, and once they make the joke about like, oh, I'm not old enough to be called that, then you can probably switch to saying jij. But until that point, use the word u, because it's very respectful. This waar is de wc, like where's the water closet, because that's what they call it there. But that means like where's the bathroom, or like mag ik uw wc gebruiken? That means may I use your bathroom? Hoe heet dit? What is this called? What do you call this? Like if you're talking about food that you've never eaten before, you can ask them like, oh, like what's this called? Dit eten is heerlijk. So this food is delicious. It was one of my favorite words in Dutch, was the word heerlijk, just because it's fun to say. But they use the word lekker for pretty much anything, like just like describing things. So like when they say lekker, literally translates to tasty, but it can also mean a lot of different things. It just describes something that they feel is like they like it, like it's really good. And so like where you're from is waar komt u vandaan? So where are you from? And then ik kom uit de Verenigde Staten. I'm from the United States. Or ik kom uit South Africa. I'm from South Africa. All these other different places. But that's something to remember with stuff like that, is it's like I come from is the way they say it. So yes is ja, no is nee. Happy is gelukkig or blij. Sad is verdrietig. Yeah. Fantastic is fantastisch. That was another one of my favorite words. But yeah, you learn a lot as you go as well. They use a lot of different words for different situations.
About the language, I love it now, and I didn't love it when I was in the MTC. But that was me, and I really struggled with it at the beginning. And I guess I'll just share personal experience, because for everyone it's different, and some missionaries understand it so much quicker than others. And that's just how it goes when you learn a language in general. But with Dutch, I would say give it time and allow yourself to make so many mistakes. Just laugh at it, or because crying's too messy, and just enjoy learning the new words and the new sounds and how your mouth makes the new sounds. And Dutch sometimes feels like you have a mouthful of marbles, but the words that you use are different. They're so much different than anything I've ever heard before or tried to learn. I remember when I was in the 7th grade, I tried to learn Chinese, and there was a class offered at my junior high that let me do that. But when I got to the MTC, I thought, Dutch is so much harder than Chinese. But then it ended up being fine, and I ended up having experiences on my mission that allowed me to ask so many questions to members who would be really willing to help. That's another thing, though, about members and I guess just people from the Netherlands and Belgium, is that they have such a small population and compared to the rest of the world that speaks their language, that they will do anything. If you ask them questions about their language, they'll just talk to you and explain things to you and help you speak, just to help you feel successful. And they think it's so interesting that people want to take time to learn their language, which only 17 million people in the whole world speak Dutch. That's not very many. And so when someone is taking time, especially someone who has no clue what Dutch is or is not associated with German at all, because they're kind of related, they think that's incredible. And they'll just do their best to help you if they really see that you're trying to learn. I said in another part of these clips that English is really common there. People are very good at speaking English there. And so when they hear that you are from anywhere besides the Netherlands and that you can speak English, they'll start speaking to you in English, because they say, oh, I want to practice. And then you have to say, no, you can practice English, but I will be speaking to you in Dutch, and just keep going. Because if you don't, you won't learn as much as you need to. And not that you won't learn the language, but you just don't learn as much as you need to. So if you continue speaking Dutch, they'll continue speaking Dutch back to you. They'll realize your desire to learn the language. But I guess just diligence. Just don't give up when you can't say that guttural G every time you're trying to, and don't be concerned about the letters and how they all fit together, even though it has the same alphabet as English. A lot of those sounds are not the same. So I would just recommend practice. The more you speak, the more you learn, and the better you'll become.